Well, good morning. Wow, that's really warm today. It's a job to find a shady spot. So I'm sitting in the sun. I came down here yesterday. Actual fact, I came with Jenny yesterday, and the wind was really blowing really strong, and you couldn't hear much of the bird song at all. All you could hear was the wind rushing through the trees, and the trees creaking rather, making us a little bit nervous to be in the woods, in actual fact. And when we got home, I've noticed all across our back garden was white, as if it had been snowing. And when I looked up, of course, it was the blossom from our neighbour's cherry tree, and the wind had just taken the blossom and was blowing it everywhere, so everywhere somewhere. And it got me thinking, about about that story that Jesus told, that parable of the sower and the seed. When he was scattering the seeds here, there and everywhere, some fell on the rocks and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on in the brambles and briars, and the seeds sprouted but they got choked. And some fell on the good soil. And it got me thinking. Jen and I have been spending a while, quite a few whiles actually, in our garden, uh, and we've been pulling up the weeds. There've been so many weeds, and it got me thinking, about the seed that went onto the rocks and the briar and got choked and eaten up, uh, and that's the word of God getting choked. And I thought, well, I don't know. There's another angle we could look at that. I don't believe that we should give up on those that do get choked. Choked by the busyness of life, as they say. The brambles of life can actually choke us all out, can't it? But if we spend a bit of time, like Jenny and I have been spending in the garden, pulling up those weeds, getting the roots of the brambles out. We've got brambles as well, and getting all those out. And it's amazing. I think I showed you some photos. Some of you have probably seen the photographs of our front garden with all the tulips. Well, just before they really started to bloom, they didn't look as if they were going to come to anything because they were choked by so many weeds. And so the only way we could do it was to pull out those weeds, to get in amongst those weeds and pull them out. And I got to thinking, perhaps that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't give up on people. I think we all get choked sometimes. We all get choked by the weeds and brambles of life. I know I've several times, and it's because of other people who have come to my rescue sometimes that I've got out of those brambles, that way of living. And I just thought, that's just one thought I had. So if we know people that are getting choked by brambles of life, then we should go and talk to them. And again, I think as Christians, we've got to be very careful how we do talk. We need to talk in today's language, because what's the point of talking in Old English or whatever we call it if you can't understand it? I was reading from Paul's letter to the Corinthians this morning with Jenny, and in actual fact, I found some of those words in that reading very difficult to understand. So if I find it difficult, how much more do other people who haven't really heard that word find it difficult? So yeah, I just wanted to share that thought with you, and remember that we Christians are the ones who are casting out those seeds, casting out the word. We need to make sure where that word lands. and that it's not choked by today's busyness. In actual fact, what we're doing at the moment that's a J. What we're doing at the moment is interrupting. He's obviously saying I've spoken long enough, but what we're doing at the moment is quite helpful because it gives us all time to pause and reflect. Christians or non-Christians or believers or unbelievers, you know, this is a lovely time in actual fact in some ways for us who are able to sit back and reflect a bit. But we do remember those people who are caught up in the briars and brambles of life, and unfortunately we forget sometimes. I think with so much in the news at the moment about this coronavirus, we forget those that are caught up in terrible situations where children are dying by the minute across the world. We need to consider those, and we need to pray for those people too. Just some thoughts. God bless. Have a lovely day.